What should we do when the heart and the mind are not aligned? For example, my heart deeply loves someone and wants to be with them, but the reality of being in that relationship brought a lot of pain and suffering over the years. My mind stepped in to protect me and ended the relationship, seeing no other way out. Now, I sometimes feel the urge to reach out because that love still exists in my heart. But my mind says, don't go back, don't burn yourself again. Is it possible to honor love without reopening the wound? Should I stay away to protect my energy, or is there a higher path I'm not seeing yet? A metaphor I think of, and this is a great metaphor, Oji, well done, is I love animals deeply. And if I were on a safari and I saw a lion, my heart might want to pet it and hug it, but my mind would wisely keep me at a distance. How can I navigate this kind of inner conflict with wisdom and compassion? Beautiful question. When it comes to intimate relationships, and ironically, that's where a lot of the questions came from, yeah, on this week. Uh, as I said on the straight talk, and I said on the module, it's usually the area that produces the most joy and also the most, yeah, heartbreak, most stress. If we're talking about wanting to leave a relationship, there are two levels to that awareness. I've covered this before, I'm going to cover it again. If you are leaving the relationship because it's too painful, because the lessons that that pain is bringing, you don't want to learn, then you will likely attract that same lesson in a different form or a different person downstream. If you are leaving the relationship because you need space to work on yourself and proximity isn't helping, that can be healthy. There's nothing wrong with that. Because sometimes we need to remove ourselves from our triggers if we haven't learned how to not react to triggers. If you're leaving the relationship because it feels like your truth is now walking a different path and you feel that you've learned what you need to learn authentically, then it may well be that your truth is to walk a different path. Now, here's what we don't get to do. We don't get to put the other person in our movie. And that's tough for some of you to hear because you love this person. There is nothing wrong with loving somebody when you are emotionally mature enough to let go of linking loving with ownership. So if you walk into a park and there is a beautiful flower, you can appreciate that flower. You can smell that flower. You can be in awe of the majesty of how nature has created this phenomenal thing. But if you pick that flower and take it home because you're in love with it so much, you just ruined something beautiful. But I want that flower. I need that flower in my life. I feel so much love for that flower because it lights me up. It fills all of my gaps. You don't get a right to pick the flower. You get a right to be in harmony with that flower. And at some point, that flower is going to die, maybe before or after you. But you don't get to choose for the flower its path. You try to control the flower by, oh, I'll put it in a nice vase of water. I'll give it sunlight every day. Doesn't work that way. Now, if you still love that flower and you had to leave that relationship because it was becoming toxic to you and you didn't have the tools and you had to look at what the lessons were and you're happy with the lessons you learned, the only caveat that I would usually look through in terms of, do I go back? Because I still love that relate. I still love that person. Of course you're going to love that person. You speak to smokers that have quit. Some of them still love the smell of cigarettes, even though they will never go back to smoking. But their appreciation of that still happens. Right? So if you're looking at it through the lens of the reason it was painful before was because there was a mismatch in the levels of awareness. Should we call it that? Yeah, if you're in through me and somebody's in to me, you can still cohabit and love each other if the through me person is holding a space for that person in to me and not judging them. But if you then leave the relationship because it was so, at that point, destructive, or you got, as in this case, to quote the language, burnt or hurt, and you've now done your healing, that doesn't qualify for going back to get the wound potentially picked again with what caused the wound in the first place. If the person on their journey you feel has now matured to a level where they're not going to start opening wounds, that's a different conversation. But my experience in that is that that person will probably come back on their own accord rather than you go back to them. Especially if, ladies, this is more your side from experience. You want to go help them because you love and care for them. You see them still hurting themselves or not living to their potential. And you think that, if you could really wrap your arms around them in a way that if they get it, they'll improve. They're not going to get it. They're not going to improve. It's not your movie. It's their movie. And what I say is the number one rule of coaching: if you want something more for your client than they want it for themselves, so we're talking about change or transformation, you are wasting your time. It took me 10 years to learn that, banging my head against the wall thinking I was doing good by trying to help everyone. I was out running on a training run on Monday. Yeah, I leave early, 6 a.m. I'm on a 20-kilometer training run tomorrow. Yeah, I'll be out before first light. And while I was running on Monday, I came across a guy who complimented me on the dogs. Bella and Archie need a little bit of fitness, so they come with me on training runs. And he's like, "Oh my goodness, and this is a guy at 6 a.m, probably still on his way home. Let's put it that way. Young guy from England. Oh, I love these dogs, that blah, blah. He says, I'm having a really tough time. I just lost my dog, a husky. And I was really, empathetic with him. I stopped. And then he talked about, I've also just lost my license because I was drink driving. I'm having a tough time. And he proceeded to get into victim mode. Now, the universe clearly put me there for a reason. And while I was partly appreciative of the 10-minute, reprieve it gave me on my training run, I spent 10 minutes with this guy and he left very inspired. Things like that happen all the time to me. But here's the thing. I have to absolutely let go of what he does with that 10 minutes he got with me. He chooses to go get drunk again that night and fall into his victim story, or he may just remember some of the things I said 6 months from now when he's hit his head too hard on the sidewalk. I've got to let go. And some of the people you've let go of in the past, you've got to keep letting go of, without running back thinking that it's your time to help or you're responsible. I made a big mistake 20 odd years ago. Are we 2025? 20, pretty much 20, 21 years ago in a relationship. I listened to something Tony said that if you meet all of somebody's needs, they won't leave you. And somebody left me. And of course, what does that imply? It implies they left me because I did something wrong. If I'd have only been better, if I only met their needs, what I came to understand, learning more about human behavior and relationships and the nuances of how we operate, is that was absolute total bullshit. It may have some validity from the perspective of somebody in by me, but it has absolutely no bearing on what somebody else's truth is. Now, yes, if you meet somebody's needs and they still leave you, it's clearly not their truth.